Hello, welcome to Group Therapy Central, where today we're going to talk about what happens when you need therapy, but you can't afford it. And so we have 8 different ideas to help you be able to bridge that gap and afford and access the therapy services that you need, or your child, or your friend, or family member, or whoever it is that's needing mental health services. So the first place we always want to start when talking about paying for therapy or other mental health services is to figure out what is covered under your health insurance. If you don't have health insurance, I'd encourage you to get health insurance and maybe figure out some of the low cost or free health insurance options. So with your health insurance, what you want to be able to do is call up the phone number that's on the back of your health insurance card and ask them, what is my mental health coverage? If you don't know the phone number, you can find it online or contact your parents or whoever it is, but get access to that phone number and be able to get on the phone with them and ask, what is my mental health coverage? And they'll be able to give you an answer. And it might be something to the effect of, you have 12 sessions covered in full each calendar year, and then after that you have to pay a copay. Or you have unlimited sessions covered each year, you pay a 20% or 25% copay. Or, and I'm seeing this more and more frequently lately, is you don't have any mental health coverage at all until you meet your deductible. And then at that point, the mental health coverage kicks in and maybe you pay a 20% copay at that point or whatever it might be. So it's really important to figure out if you want to use your health insurance, and to do that by contacting them. You can, while you're on the phone with them, ask, can you give me a list of providers in my community that are covered under my health insurance? And then you could also ask, if I don't want to go with one of those providers, if I want to go with an out-of-network provider, how does that work? How do I get reimbursed for those services? So you can ask all those types of questions. And it's really important to start there because you want to figure out, do I want to use my health insurance or not? If you don't want to use your health insurance, or if you don't have good enough coverage, these next 7 ideas will be very helpful for you in that type of way. So the next idea is, and some of these ideas can work in tandem with health insurance too, so keep that in mind. So the second idea is you want to be able to ask a clinician or a clinic, do you offer any sliding scale or pro bono options? Pro bono meaning free. And most places do. If it's a big clinic, maybe an outpatient community health center, or an outpatient center at a hospital or something like that, they'll actually pull out a chart and they'll talk with you and ask about your income and other things like that and get a good sense of what fee they should slide to that would be a good fit for you and appropriate for your situation. If it's a private practice clinician, they'll probably just have a good conversation with you and try to figure out a good fee that fits for you. And why this happens is because I'm a psychologist, for example, and in the American Psychological Association, the APA Ethics Code, it encourages us to do sliding scale and pro bono work. And that's true for other mental health professionals as well. So my partner, for example, works in downtown Northfield here, and she reserves 20% of her caseload for sliding scale and pro bono clients. She sees 10 to 15 clients a week, so at any given point, there's 2 to 3 clients that she's meeting with that are paying a much lower rate than what is on her website and what she charges. And she's very intentional in the way that she structures her fees so that she can offer to 20% of her clients a low scale or free option. This isn't the type of thing that's going to fall into your lap. Clinicians probably aren't going to offer this to you. You do have to ask about it. And of course, there's 3 answers you might get. One, they might say, I don't do that type of thing. That's unfortunate. You're back to square one and reaching out to a different clinician. A potential answer you'll get is, I don't have any openings right now. I'm all full for my sliding scale and pro bono clients, but I can put you on a waiting list, and maybe in a month or 3 or 6, I can reach back out to you and see if you've connected with a therapist, and if not, then you can have that spot and we can work together. Or of course, the third option, they'll say, yep, I have a spot, I'm open, let's talk about what a good fee for you is. And it is important usually that you pay something for your therapy. Whether it's 50% of the rate, or maybe you pay even $20 or $15 or $5 even, you probably want to be investing some money into your therapy. That's best. But of course, there's situations where people can't even afford $5, and so free therapy is the best option. So that's the second thing. The third idea is, if you live next to a university that has a training clinic for mental health therapists that are in their coursework and doing practicum work, and they're under supervision, you can find free and low-cost therapy that's very, very good quality therapy. For example, my partner and I, we did some couples counseling at a clinic called the Comprehensive Clinic at BYU, and we met with a student who was trained to become a marriage and family therapist, and she was wonderful. We did 6, maybe 8 sessions with her and really benefited a lot from that. The one thing we had to do was sign a release of information form or a waiver form saying we were okay with her video recording our sessions, but she kept those very confidential and wouldn't show them to anyone except for her supervisor, and together they could look at the video and he could give her good feedback and supervision about that. And I imagine that the quality of treatment that we received was much better because she was getting some good supervision around that. And she, in and of herself, was doing a great job, but it added to it to have that supervision. So that's an option. If you're interested in that, there is an Association for Psychology Training Programs, or excuse me, Association, for Psychology Training Programs, and there's a website I'll include in the comments that you can see a list of all the training clinics for psychology that are in the United States. And you can also just get online and research other training clinics for maybe licensed professional counselors or marriage and family therapists or social workers, and see if a school near you has a training program with the clinic for community members. The fourth idea, it's kind of along those same lines, but is to simply get online and research low-care therapy or free therapy. You can type into Google, free therapy near me, or low-cost therapy near me, and you might be surprised at what you find. For example, here in Minneapolis, there is a walk-in clinic that has a few different sites in the Twin Cities that is free. You can walk in, they don't use health insurance or anything like that, and you can meet with a licensed clinician. And the clinicians are paid, it's a nonprofit organization, so they're paid through grants and other funding. And so there's no money exchange with the clients that come through. They get free therapy. And the interesting thing, the cool thing about this walk-in clinic here in Minneapolis is they'll actually provide ongoing therapy with the same clinician each week. And so you're able to get free therapy in that way. So research that near you, and you might be surprised at what type of nonprofit organizations or other resources there are to have free therapy. Another good resource along those lines is to call NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. There'll be a local affiliate in your state, and they can give you a good list of resources, maybe nonprofit organizations or other things. They'll also give you a good list of support groups that might be a good fit for what you're struggling with. And we'll talk about support groups a little bit more here in a second. So there's the first 4 ideas. Before we move on to the next 4 ideas, I do just want to say, if I miss an idea, please include it in the comment section below. My dream would be that anybody that stumbles across this video and is looking for lower cost therapy so that they can actually access therapy will be able to do that. So please clarify things that I say, or if I miss something important, please include it in so that people can have access to that as well. Wonderful. So 5th idea is you might want to look at options through your employer. There's a lot of times within employee assistant programs, EAPs, mental health services that you would have at maybe a lower cost or completely covered by your employer. And then along those same lines is if you are in an institution of higher education, if you're a college student of some sort, there's a good chance that you have access to counseling services, maybe through a college counseling center that would be free or low cost. My full-time job here is at Carleton College. And when students come in for therapy services, individual group, psychiatric services, and a number of other things, it's completely free for them. Of course, they are paying for that through tuition and their other student fees, but they're already paying for our services whether they use them or not. So if you are affiliated with any institution of higher education as a student, explore that. There very well might be a good chance for some free or low-cost therapy for you that way. If you're a high school student or middle school or elementary school student, there might be some good options through your school. You can check in with counselors, maybe some good access to assessment if you want to figure out if you have a diagnosable concern. And some schools do have therapy services that are offered in-house, so it's worth asking. 6th idea is what this whole channel is about. It's group therapy. And group therapy typically is lower cost than individual therapy. And I've done a lot of research, talking with clinicians and getting on clinicians' websites to see what the rate is for group therapy. And a good rule of thumb, it's not always the case, but a good rule of thumb is that it's about half the cost of what an individual session would be. So if a clinician charges $150 for an individual therapy session, they probably would charge $75 for a group therapy session. If they charge $200 for individual, probably $100 for group. If they charge $100 for individual, probably $50 for group. And the nice thing about group, though, is individual is usually 45 to 50 minutes. Group therapy is usually 90 minutes, sometimes 75 minutes, sometimes 2 hours. But you get a lot more therapy time, twice as much time in many ways, for half the cost. And so group therapy is a very, very good thing to consider. I'll quickly mention this. Sometimes there's the misperception that group therapy is not as good as individual therapy because I'm splitting my time with other group members. But what group members quickly find out usually in that first session is, oh wow, that's not at all the case. I'm really valuing from this when I'm talking or when I'm listening, whether I'm opening up about my concerns or I'm really trying to be there for somebody else and their concerns. And people pretty quickly realize that there's oftentimes a lot more value that I get out of each minute of out of each minute of group therapy than I would in each minute of individual therapy. So that's something we'll talk about more in other videos. Please subscribe and stay tuned if you want to learn more about group therapy in our other videos. I will quickly mention too, though, with this sixth idea, is in addition to group therapy, there's the notion of support groups, which are similar but different. And support groups oftentimes are free. And as I mentioned, NAMI can give you a list of support groups in your area. You can probably find a number of resources online. And these are where peers get together. Sometimes they're led by mental health clinicians or other health professionals, but oftentimes they're peer-led, and it's a group of people coming together around a common struggle, and they can be very, very helpful. If you attend a support group for people with depression or eating concerns or whatever it might be. And a quick thing to note too is there is, of course, the whole world of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Sexaholics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, a number of groups that are mostly support groups. Of course, they have 12 steps in addition to that, but they're free, and people find those groups to be very, very helpful. So you can figure out if there's a good option for you near you with regards to a support group or maybe a 12-step group. So that was the sixth idea. Seventh idea is something I'm learning more and more about. It's the notion of online therapy. And I'm mentioning this because a lot of the rates that I'm seeing are much less than they would be for face-to-face therapy with someone in their office. Of course, online therapy, you can do video therapy, which is face-to-face in that type of way, or phone therapy. But a lot of the ones that I'm seeing are email-based and text-based therapy. So you're not meeting with the therapist 1 hour a week. You can text them at any point, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, or email them, and then they get back to you within a certain amount of time. So you're in contact with your therapist throughout the week. And the emerging research on this shows that it's about as equivalent as meeting face-to-face with a clinician. Of course, it's still in its infancy, that research. But a lot of people talk about how it's a better form of treatment for them than face-to-face. They feel more comfortable with texting or emailing. They actually open up more and in different ways than they do when they're meeting face-to-face. So that's something worth exploring, especially if you're interested in one of the lower cost options. The last thing I saw was with Talkspace. I think that it was $49 a week, and you have that 24-hour access to a therapist. And then I think you pay more if you do phone or video therapy, but could be much less than meeting face-to-face with a clinician. Eighth idea. If you belong to a church or some sort of spiritual community, there's a good chance that you'll be able to have access to mental health services through that. One might be with your pastor or clergy member, because oftentimes they receive training to be mental health providers and clinicians, and they have credentials in that type of way. So there's a chance you'll be able to do that. If there's not, or maybe you don't want to do that, there's a good chance that there's funding to be able to help you access therapy services. So the fast offerings, the tithes, the other donations that the community church members make, that's the exact type of thing that those could be used for. So you would need to reach out to your ecclesiastical leaders to ask about that, but there's a chance that they'll cover part or maybe all of the cost of the therapy that you're needing. So again, those are the 8 ideas. Please add to these ideas, clarify anything I say, make sure that I'm communicating things correctly. And I do want to let you know that I'll read all of the comments. And you're welcome to ask any questions that you might have that I can give some further clarification to. And just remember that I'm not your therapist in this medium, no matter how much I maybe would want that or you would maybe want that. But I would love to be your friend. I would love to be your advocate and help answer the questions you have and help connect you to resources and services that you're needing. And as always, subscribe if you're wanting to stay tuned to other videos. You can also check out our website to learn more about what we do here at Group Therapy Central. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.